Hello everyone, Storm 101 here. Today we'll be just going to be talking about the first system for today. The first system will bring in a winter storm threat for parts of the Dakotas, Minnesota, and even moving to parts of Wisconsin and upper Michigan. It does have an ice storm threat for parts of Wisconsin and Michigan as well. We're also going to be going in detail with the severe weather potential as well, and also that flash flood risk as well. Before we get started on this video, if you guys like weather-related content, you can subscribe to my channel. We do this stuff here all the time on this channel. Plus, we'll be having more. We may have one more update, at least for tomorrow's risk. Maybe tomorrow. We'll have to see how the weather locally goes. Plus, we'll likely have another update on the upcoming systems as well. One for Wednesday into Thursday and Friday, and there's possibly another one Sunday into Monday of next week as well. So we'll talk about those maybe tomorrow as well. So definitely stay tuned for that as well. So we're getting started with the storm prediction outlook here. This is for tonight. We got a slight risk for severe weather from northern Texas through pretty much most of eastern Oklahoma, northern and northwestern Arkansas into southern Missouri. And our marginal risk does extend all the way into parts of Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama. The greatest tornado risk is looking to be going from northern Texas all the way up into parts of southeast Oklahoma, northern Arkansas, in southern Missouri. Most of this is going to be in what's known as QLCS mode, or in other words, squall line tornadoes. And these are the weaker tornadoes that don't last very long, but there could be multiple out there as well. Damage units would be the biggest threat. Also, there could be some hail out there as well. We got some pretty good lap rates out there as well, which can help bring in stronger updrafts as well. So we could see some hail out there as well. And here's tomorrow. We got a slight risk for severe weather for parts of Mississippi, Alabama, the western half of Tennessee, southwestern Kentucky, southern Illinois, southeastern Missouri, even for parts of far eastern Arkansas as well. We do have two different areas we're keeping an eye on for the tornado risk. We got one for parts of the lower Ohio Valley. That's going to be more in the QLCS mode. And you got another one a little bit further south. That could be a little bit more supercell mode as well for the tornado risk. Damage and winds would be the primary threat. There could be some hail out there as well, but I think the risk for hail is pretty low for tomorrow as well. Then on day 3, there's no severe weather risk at this time here for day 3 as well. Well, let's also quickly check out the weather predictor outlook here when it comes to excessive rainfall. We do have a slight risk from eastern Oklahoma, northern Arkansas, southern Missouri, into far southern Illinois, even for parts of southwestern Kentucky as well. And then tomorrow, we got two different areas of moderate risk. You got one for southwestern Kentucky, and then you got another one for northern Alabama as well, with a slight risk for some of the surrounding areas as well, including most of Tennessee and even for most of Kentucky as well. And then on day 3, which is Wednesday, we got slight risk for parts of Arkansas and far northwestern Tennessee as well, even including for areas far southwestern Kentucky as well. That's going to be ahead of the next system, but we'll talk about that a little bit more about that tomorrow. So we're going to start with the NAIA model and with the supercell composite. And you will notice that there's some pretty high numbers out there. There really is. You would think that there would be a pretty good severe weather risk. Well, check out when we check out some of those forecast soundings. It may look like there's a pretty elevated risk for severe weather, but when you look into the soundings, hold your horses. There's something going on in the soundings here that will limit that severe weather potential, and that's what's known as a cap. When your temperature line, which is the red line, and I honestly forgot what the name of this blue dotted line is, uh, but what I do know is whenever your red line crosses the blue dotted line, there's a cap in the mid levels, or in other words here, there's a warm air loft. And this is a pretty big layer here of a cap here. It's a pretty good layer of a warm air loft. Storms cannot build through that type of cap as well. It's basically just like a wall up there. You got a large brick wall that storms cannot form through as well. So despite it having a lot of wind shear, decent amount of cape, and good lap rates, good everything, you got that one thing that prevents from everything of that to happen. However, that is expected to erode later tonight. So this is why it's going to be more of an overnight threat than during the day. Because during the day, even into the early evening hours, well, mostly the evening hours, um, most of it's just going to be capped as well. You'll find some similar results out here as well. We'll check Severn, Arkansas real quick, see if I'm correct. Yes, I am. You do have that cap there in the mid levels as well. But when we get deeper to the overnight hours, especially when we get into the middle of the night, so let's check out southeastern Oklahoma. So this is getting deeper to the overnight hours tonight, and look what happens here. Your cap is pretty much at this point eroded away. With some decent lap rates, now we can get storms to form in this type of environment as well. Now the in-smooth values are not going to be as high as what it was earlier on, but there's still plenty of cape left here. Surface-based cape is well over 900, so there's still plenty of cape left out there. Plus, you do have plenty of wind shear to work with as well. And you also have wind direction with height going on here from the surface. It's pretty much due south, but when you get into the upper levels, like 850 millibars, it's from the southwest as well. So you do get wind direction of height. Plus, you do have a pretty good hodograph as well. You get the nice large curve going on there as well. So this is a pretty good sound here, favorable for all hazards as well. And you will probably find a very similar situation about everywhere else. Now, something interesting is going to happen here later on the night here. We're going to start to see possibly a large cluster of thunderstorms that tries to develop somewhere in northern Arkansas, and this could go on for quite a bit of time as well. We could see what's known as a MCS, or a mesoscale convective system. And what that and this is something you typically see in the summertime, not during February. So that's pretty interesting that we may have the potential to see an MCS develop. And these could be pretty good rain producers as well. So we do have to keep an eye on that as well. And you can see when you get to the morning hours, you still got a pretty good environment across northern Arkansas as well. Our front is still way back here. Meanwhile, our large cluster is still continuing on a little bit further east as well. And they'll continue to travel east until the environment's not good for, well, mainly for shower thunderstorm activity uh, as well. Let's check out some of the other environments here. So let's check out the 850 millibars. Something that I have noticed since yesterday is that cinemas are trending towards a stronger low of jet, especially for Tuesday night into, well, Monday night into Tuesday morning. Before, we had mainly numbers between the 50 to 60 knot range. Now we're showing stronger values. We're actually now starting to see 70 to 80 knots. And the NAM is pretty aggressive here with this. I don't think we're going to see a 90 knot Nova jet with this setup here. But most models do agree on that out ahead of this large cluster of thunderstorms, there is going to be a strong low Nova jet out ahead of it as well. So there's going to be a lot of wind shear in the morning hours. And it will have to depend on how much instability you got left out ahead of this, underneath this strong Nova jet. If you got plenty of cape, those cluster thrusters could go on for a while. And they do have to start to produce damaging winds and also some QLCS tornadoes as well. This lava jet will likely be dying down, but our next area here to watch later in the day on Tuesday would be across parts of Mississippi, Alabama, maybe getting into parts of southern Tennessee as well. That's where we can see more of a supercell mode type of setup as well. Let's check out some other ingredients like surface-based cape, and you can see there's going to be plenty of cape out there for most areas as well. And then again, for areas a little bit further north, it depends on ahead of that cluster thunderstorms, which in this case here, there's not much instability out there, but we'll have to check out the higher resolution model guidance to see if they got much of any instability out ahead of it as well, since they do have a little bit better handle with it as well. Here's something I haven't shown on the channel before, and this is a hodograph map. This is what we've been seeing in those forecast soundings, and now we can see it in a larger view. Anytime we got these large curves out there, when it comes to wind shear wise, it's favorable for tornadoes. At least when it comes to wind shear anyway. And you can see here, there's a lot of curved soundings out here as well, even some down in Louisiana as well. So you can see here, there's going to be plenty of wind shear out there as well. Then again, anytime we got these curved soundings here, wind shear wise, it is favorable for tornadoes as well, which you can see there. It's over a large area as well. So I think that was pretty cool to kind of look at as well. And here's dew points, and dew points are likely to be elevated for a lot of people as well. And it does seem like the dew point values has trended further north as well with some of the model guidance as well. Now there's still some uncertainty when it comes to Tuesday, especially when it's further north. I think there's pretty decent confidence a little bit further south here that we could see maybe a couple supercells down there. But there's still plenty of uncertainty further north as well. And I think there's nothing else to check out here. Well, I guess we could check out the significant tornado parameters real quick. So anytime we got a 1, it is favorable for tornadoes, but if you're at least a 2, that's favorable for stronger tornadoes. But then again, keep in mind here, even though we got very high numbers out here, you still got a cap in place. So you kind of have to go into right around 9Z Tuesday. And you can see here, if any discrete cell forms in this type of environment, we could see some problems as well. There's going to be plenty of wind shear to work with, decent amount of instability to work with as well. So if we do see any storms that form out ahead of the main cluster thunderstorms, those have the better potential to produce stronger tornadoes as well. But for right now, most models doesn't show much of anything like that developing. Looking to be more of a squall line type of event than a discrete mode type of event as well. And here it is getting into Tuesday. It's got the highest numbers up in the parts of Kentucky as well. But let's check out the Hermon, which honestly I think it's got the better handle with this setup here as well. So excuse me, especially when it comes to reflectivity mode, it typically does better than most other models, but don't take this as an actual forecast or anything like that. But it does typically handle better. It has handled it better than most other models on the last event. That's the reason why I never show reflectivity on the NAM, because I don't think it's going to be accurate when it comes to reflectivity mode. Anyway, so later tonight, you see here, you got some cluster thunderstorms moving through parts of Oklahoma, up into parts of Missouri. Some of those have the potential to become strong to severe. And then you start to see something pretty interesting here. This is what I was talking about here. In the parts of northern Arkansas and the parts of Missouri, you get potentially a mesoconvective system as well in the morning hours. And this does have the potential to produce damaging winds and also maybe some QLCS tornadoes as well. That's why we have that 5% risk zone for those areas up there, because of that potential for QLCS tornadoes, especially when you got a lot of wind shear to work with as well. It doesn't take much instability to get some severe weather going as well. And depending on how much instability you get out ahead of this thing here, is the longer this cluster here could keep on going as well, especially when it comes to the strong to severe side of things. Now, there is a lot of clearing out ahead of this here as well. But when we look into cloud cover, though, currently the model doesn't show much way of sunshine or peaks of sunshine out there. It's mostly 100% cloud cover. But there's honestly, I kind of had some doubts on there. I think there might be a little bit more sunshine out there, especially when there's not a whole lot going on a little bit further south as well. There is a couple cells out there, but I do still believe there's going to be that chance that we could see a decent amount of clearing out ahead of this thing here as well. But we'll probably find that out by tomorrow morning as well. And you can see here how that squall line continues to move to the east as well. Damage winds could still be possible at that point there as well. Well, maybe not damage winds, but strong straight line winds as well, because there's going to be a lot of wind shear to work with this thing here as well. When we check out the HER model when it comes to 850 millibar winds, yeah, check this out here, out ahead of this squall line of storms here. You got this area here of a stronger lull of a jet as well, which for some areas, it's pretty strong as well. So then again, there's going to be a lot of wind shear to work with these storms here as well. It all depends on how much instability we could get out ahead of this thing here, which most models do suggest that there's not going to be much convection out ahead of this line here as well, which leads to me to some concerns that there's a pretty decent chance that we may see a decent amount of breaks in the clouds in the morning hours as well. And if that does occur, we can see a decent amount of instability out there as well. Temperatures will likely be mild in the morning. So with sunshine out, if we do see some sunshine and you get that nice strong southerly wind, then temperatures are going to climb up very quickly in the morning hours as well, which is going to lead to some instability out there as well. So it'll be interesting to see how tomorrow morning goes for parts of southern Indiana, Kentucky, even down to parts of Tennessee as well. With that, so if we check out surface-based CAPE here from the HER model, we'll check out updraft helicity swaths in a moment here. And you can see here for later tonight into the early morning hours, there's going to be decent amount of visibility out there. But you also need to notice there, out heavy storms here, this model here doesn't show much way of like no instability, which honestly I think there might be a little bit more than what it's showing here, especially if there's going to be any breaks in the clouds. Plus, the temperatures will be pretty mild as well. So honestly, I think it could be a little bit underdone with some of those instability values as well. But again, we'll see how tomorrow morning goes. But after that cluster passes through, there could be another resurgence of instability values across western Kentucky, which could lead to another round of potential strong to severe storms as well as this cold front moves through as well. But you also do notice that towards the south here, you got an area of some pretty good instability values, even up to 2,000 joules per kilogram for some areas as well, which is a lot of instability, especially for this time of year for those areas as well. Which if we go back to reflectivity here, this kind of goes to my next concern is what's going to be going on here. A little bit first south, you notice here that the Hermel likes to train some of the storms over to some of the same areas. And this kind of leads to the next topic, which is the flash flood risk. It really depends. Either way, I do believe there's going to be a prefrontal convection boundary here. And what that is, that's where those storms are going to ride along. It's almost like a stationary boundary. It's what it is. And you get these storms here that train over some of the same areas depending if it moves around or anything. If it doesn't move around much, these storms here are going to continue to go along that boundary for a longer period of time. And at the same time, you got all these temperatures and favorable dew points feeding into these storms as well, with a decent amount of instability just to the south as well. That's going to lead to some stronger storms as well, which could lead to higher rainfall rates, which can also lead to major flooding problems as well. So that's another thing we need to keep an eye on as well, because where this prefrontal boundary is going to set up is where we could see some of those highest rainfall totals as well, which could be anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of rain, which is a lot of rain, especially when you got very saturated grounds. Well, not very saturated grounds, but you still have saturated grounds out there as well. We do not need rain. So that's going to be another big concern as well. So then again, that's something we really need to keep an eye on as well as where that prefrontal convection boundary is going to set up. And I think that might be the last thing here. Oh yeah, the updraft helicity swaths here. So let's check this out here. And what this is here is this kind of tells you here where we could see some rotating storms as well. Higher the numbers, stronger the circulations could be. which if we look at this here, the Irma is not very aggressive here. Um, a little bit further south here. It does likes to cluster up some of those storms as well a little bit. Some of its previous runs show a little bit more discrete mode, but it seems like the latest run here likes to keep it a little bit more cluster up, which can decrease the tornado potential as well. I think it might be a safe play here to keep the probabilities a little bit on the lower end. I don't think it's going to be a significant outbreak out down there at this point, but definitely has potential as well. We still have a decent amount of wind shear out there, and there's going to be plenty of instability as well. So we'll have to see what happens down here as well. So we definitely have to watch parts of Mississippi, North Alabama, maybe get into parts of southern Tennessee as well. You also notice there with that big cluster of thunderstorms currently ongoing, look at this trail here of updraft helicity swaths here that goes all the way up to central Kentucky. That's with that same squall line. And you can see here it does have that QLCS tornado thread getting all the way into parts of central Kentucky as well. So we definitely have to watch for that as well. And it definitely has some potential to be long-lived as well, depending on how much instability is out ahead of us, especially Tuesday morning as well for parts of central Kentucky as well. So there's definitely two different areas we're watching here tomorrow. You got this area up here, and you got this other area down here um, as well. So let's check out the significant tornado parameters with this as well. Then we'll move to the winter side of things of the system here as well. You can see a pretty elevated significant tornado parameters, but then again, as a reminder, if we go to one of those higher number spots, there's still a cap out there, which in this case here, the herd does have a weaker cap out there as well at around this time here, around 4Z. But still, with a cap that weak, some shower stores cannot really develop. They'll have a hard time developing in that type of environment as well. But when we get to deeper to the overnight hours, that cap starts to erode away. If we get another sounding along the Missouri and Arkansas border, there's no cap there. You still got a pretty good elevated mix layer though. Or yes, elevated mix layer going on here in the mid levels, which could help with updrafts and with a more unstable environment, especially with the mix layer cape, which is up to 1300. That's pretty high into the overnight hours. That's going to help keep these storms going. Even though your surface-based cape might be right around 500, you still got a pretty good elevated mix layer of 1300 joules per kilogram of cape, which is still a decent amount. Plus, you did have a good hodograph there as well. And here it is getting into Tuesday here. Still watching two different areas. You got one a little bit further north. There could be a secondary round of some strong severe storms. And you got this other area down here in the parts of Mississippi and Alabama. If we get it sounding up in the parts of southwestern Kentucky, this will have to depend on if you guys can get in the break of the action here, that prefrontal convection line. If that moves out earlier on, you could get some higher instability values as well for out ahead of that cold front as well, which then again, there's that potential for that secondary round of some strong severe storms as well for parts of southwestern Kentucky as well later in the day. Which you can see here from the Hermal, you got a pretty good hodograph still in place, decent amount of its stability, so that'll be favorable for damage winds and maybe for that low end tornado risk. And then here's this other area down in parts of Mississippi, Alabama, where you got more instability to work with, but a little bit lower on the wind shear values. Story to velocity, still between 200 and 300 range will still be favorable for tornadoes as well. Still a pretty good sounding here. So really tomorrow, we gotta watch these two areas right in here as well. Gotta watch this area and this area tomorrow morning. So if you do live in those areas, definitely have to stay weather aware tomorrow as well. We really see how tomorrow morning goes. That's where we can really determine how bad the severe weather threat could be as well. All right, let's talk about the winter weather side of things here, and then again using the HER model, which I do think it's got a little bit better handle with it. You're gonna have these multiple rounds of some light to moderate snow, and there might be pockets of some heavy snow in there as well. At the same time, you do have a decent amount of freezing rain going on in between, just south of the snow line as well, across parts of southern Wisconsin into central Michigan, which those areas do have the better potential to see an ice storm as well. You guys may get to see a little break Tuesday morning, but whenever that low comes by, you get another resurgence of moisture that comes in. You do get a decent amount of freezing rain out there as well. Now, depending on how much moisture you could get out there, could determine your ice accumulation as well, because this model does suggest some areas could see heavy freezing rain. If we do see heavy freezing rain out there, keep in mind that heavy freezing rain does accumulate as well as light to moderate freezing rain. That should be noted as well. So if we do see heavy freezing rain, that's a good thing. But if we see more light to moderate freeze rain, that's not a good thing as well. That could lead to more significant amounts if we see light to moderate freeze rain as well. And you know, for Michigan, some areas could see freeze rain for a long duration as well. Those guys definitely have potential for an ice storm up there as well. Meanwhile, further north, you got plenty of snow up there in the parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, eventually into parts of upper Michigan as well, where some areas could see a wave of heavy snow later tomorrow as well. Let's talk about them ice accumulations, since it's likely going to be more significant than the snow. This is usually the frame here, and some of those amounts in Michigan is probably going to be a little bit overdone, especially when it tries to mix in with that heavy freeze rain. So I'll probably take it off maybe about 2/10 of an inch. I mean, even taking it off by some, you're still in ice storm territory as well. I think maxing amounts for parts of central Michigan, I think some areas definitely has the opportunity to see around 3/10 of an inch of ice. Could be a little bit more as well for some areas. Meanwhile, in parts of southern Wisconsin, I think maximum amounts could be two tenths of an inch, and there might be some areas that may get up to a quarter of an inch of ice. And some of those ice accumulations do go back as far as west as northern Iowa and southern Minnesota. And those amounts are likely to be on the lighter end as well, but it will be enough to cause some dangerous road conditions out there as well. So definitely have to be careful with that as well. So really, I think the greatest ice storm potential will probably have to be central Michigan, north central Michigan, where we could see freeze rain for a longer duration. And then the last thing from the her is the snowfall accumulations. And as you can see, there could be quite a bit of snow with this system here as well. It's got widespread amounts, at least a foot. That might be a little bit overdone, I would say, but even taken off by some, that's still a lot of snow. So really, we can see a lot of snow from the Dakotas, northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, into upper Michigan. I think those are the areas that could see some of the highest amounts when it comes to snowfall as well. And I think maximum amounts could be anywhere from 12 inches, and it could be as high as 15 inches, I do believe, uh, as well. But either way, taken off by some, lower end or higher end, there's going to be a lot of snow either way out there as well. But let's listen to NASA's thoughts here. You can see here, as expected to be lower than her model. Models are typically overdone with the ratios up there. But even taken off by a little bit, still a lot of snow in the forecast. And some of those highest amounts are likely to be in northern Wisconsin and parts of upper Michigan where they could see snow for a longer duration. Plus, you do get a little bit of lake effect enhancement, just a little bit as well. And here's the ice accumulations here. And as expected here, some of the highest ice accumulations are going to be in parts of north central Michigan, where we can see ice accumulations a little bit over 3/10 of an inch as well. And there can still be a decent amount of ice accumulations even back into parts of southern Wisconsin as well. But I think the main area of concern here will probably be in north central Michigan, where we can see freeze rain for a longer duration as well. But anyways, guys, that's all for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Guys, like this video, hit the like button. If you do like my channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications, and never miss an upload. If you guys have questions about this, put in the comment section down below. Or answer guys' questions. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye and have a good day.